Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the April regular meeting of the Cobb County Board of Elections and Registration to order at 3:01 p.m. Hopefully, everyone has an opportunity to take a look at the agenda. We will start at the top of the agenda. We'll open it up for public comment. Do we have anyone that, no one registered for public comment? Okay.
Just online.
Do we have someone online that registered?
We got emailed a list of the virtual.
Okay. Do we have anyone online?
We do not.
Okay.
We had quite a few people sign. I see that. I just got a text from one.
We don't have any in person, correct? The answer is no? Nobody in person? Okay. We'll wait a moment to see if perhaps we can get those that are perhaps attempting to get online. Have we had any success in letting that person in? Do we see that someone's attempting to come online?
I don't see any attendees.
You don't see any attendees? Okay.
I don't see anybody in the chat. I don't see any of the attendees.
All right. Well, I believe we can move forward at a minimum to the approval of the minutes and perhaps come back. Also, I mean, obviously, there'll be the opportunity perhaps prior to public hearing. And with that, moving on to the next item on the agenda, the approval of the minutes from the March 11th meeting. Board members, have you all had an opportunity to review? Is there a motion to approve? Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the March 11th board meeting minutes. All those in favor, please denote as much. There's no opposition. And just for minutes purposes, we'll note that board member Jessica Brooks has not arrived as of yet. She is en route. Jennifer, if you'll just denote when she arrives in the minutes. Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, the approval of the minutes for the April 5th meeting. Noting that that meeting was called to order in connection with the election that took place on April 5th. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the April 5th board meeting minutes. All those in favor denote as much. There's no opposition. The motion passes. Okay. Do we have anyone on that has joined us online?
Yes, we have one person.
Okay. If we could, oh, and who is that, please?
I'm sorry, that one person is a member of staff. So.
Oh, okay.
she
Glad I
doesn't
asked.
need to make any public comment.
Okay. Jennifer, if you'll note that, you know, we had individuals, but none showed up. I think, you know, we've attempted a couple of times to allow for participation for public comment. I think we continue with the agenda at this time. Moving on to the public hearing portion of the meeting. We've got a number of proposed polling place location changes. Who's presenting?
It'll just be me this time.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, so I'd just like to note that there's sort of three categories of items here. 3A is for the May 3rd runoff that's coming up in a couple weeks. All of the rest of them except the last one, so that would be B through H, are all related to the June 21st general primary runoff. And they are all temporary. All of these are temporary, A through H. And then 3I is also related to the June 21st primary runoff, but it is a permanent change. So I wanted to give you kind of the overall flavor of what these are.
Okay.
We can, discuss the one and then the rest and then the last one.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay. All right, so 3A is on your screen here, and this is for Mount Bethel 03. I'll get to my page. And this is because this is the interesting thing that we're trying to do to solve the problem of having an election day during the early voting period for the general primary. So because this is an election day poll, it will be for Election Day on the May 3rd runoff, but it's also starting May 2nd going to be an early voting location for the general primary held on the 24th. So what we're doing is trying to move this poll for the May 3rd runoff, Election Day, over to the church that's located right across the street, which is Mount Bethel United Methodist Church. And so this would be obviously a temporary poll location, just for that one day, that one runoff. And so early voting will continue at the government center, as it's always pretty much there every election. And we'll have signs out that say, if you're eligible for the HD 45 runoff, the location is at the Mount Bethel United Methodist Church. We'll also have someone stationed at that early voting location that has the list to make sure that if people think they are, that they can check before heading over that way.
I think being across the street, I don't think we have a real problem with this at all.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, it's the only real solution, and obviously it's not anything that we can change. And you anticipated my question, because my question would be as to whether there's someone there that would advise them as to whether they are eligible or not, because that continues to be a question, even at this point. Do board members have any comments or questions with respect to
I
this?
wish they were all like that.
Oh, but were that the case? Okay. I think in addition to you presenting them in those tranches, perhaps it makes sense to go ahead and take up the vote.
First, perhaps have the public hearing.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any public, well, you know what, no, let's just let you get through
Okay.
them and then have public hearing up.
Okay. All right, so moving to the next one, which is Dowell 01, and that's also up on the screen. And this would be a temporary change as well to this polling location is, I gotta find my page, hold on, sorry. This one is not available on the June 21st runoff. Sorry, my phone's ringing. So what we propose doing is moving it for the runoff to the West Cobb, the Dowell Elementary School is, let me read my thing here. Okay, so instead of the West Cobb Church, this will be at Dowell Elementary School. And we will have two different locations or rooms in that. I'm sorry, am I reading it wrong?
It's permanent is down.
Okay, so moving from Dowell Elementary School to the West Cobb Church, Dowell Elementary School is going through some summer renovations. And so they're not available for the runoff. And the West Cobb Church has two different rooms that will place the existing polling location that is located there is Kemp 02. And so it will have one room, and then the Dowell voters will go in another room. And as always, we'll have, our signs out and social media postings and send out whatever information that we can. These are, it is difficult to get out precinct cards in this short time, especially because redistricting cards are going out. So we'll look at ways that we can notify people of this change.
I presume we attempted to find a location in the district and something that was a bit closer.
Of course, yes. Mhm.
So we'll have someone there, today to tell people where to go.
Well, the poll workers that are there for,
The other one, okay.
will be there at the West Cobb Church. There won't be any of our staff at Dow Elementary School.
Right.
But there'll be the sign that we're required to put up that's 4 feet by 4 feet, and then 3 additional signs that are out.
It's in front of them. They don't read it.
Okay.
As you can see, it is a ways away from the old location. However, it's only 1.1 miles from the boundary of Dow Elementary School, or Dow Precinct, sorry.
Are there,
Close to that by road.
there any other comments or questions for Janine? Okay.
Okay, 3C is a temporary change to the polling location at Fuller's Park Rec Center. And that would be proposed to go to Emmanuel Korean United Methodist Church. And that is the current polling location for Sewell Mill 03. It's located 1.5 miles from the recreation center. And it will serve the number of voters because there will be separate rooms or spaces in that location. That one is located in the
In the
same
dis- in the
precinct.
district. Okay.
What's the problem at the recreation?
It is the summer programs for rec centers. Almost all the rec centers have other programs that they cannot accommodate us.
Okay. Yeah, it just, I mean, obviously, these are things that are not within our control. You know, it is what it is. I guess you and your staff will undertake, probably going a bit above and beyond what our normal processes are with regard to, especially to the extent you've got 2 precincts that are co-located in the same temporary, or in one instance, a temporary location, making certain that there's appropriate signage to indicate where one precinct is voting
Yes.
versus the other.
Yes, in addition to the signage at the old location directing people to the new location, we have directional signs at the new location saying this one is over here and this one is over here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, on the next one, that is again a temporary location for the June 21st general primary runoff. And that is changing the location from Kennesaw 3A, which is the Ben Robertson Community Center, and moving to the Kennesaw First Baptist Church. And the church is the current location for Kennesaw 4A, so this would be co-locating Kennesaw 3A with Kennesaw 4A. It's located 0.6 miles from the recreation center, and it does have 2 different rooms or spaces where we can co-locate the 2 precincts. And you can see on the map, it's fairly close by.
And what is the problem at the scene?
It's a rec center again. It's all the summer programs.
Okay.
Janine,
And-
for all of these co-located ones, are we assuming there's enough parking at these churches to accommodate the voters?
Yes, that's what my staff has looked at, that they found a suitable place that will hold all of the voters from both precincts, and it's interior space and parking space.
And from a line perspective, will there be adequate communication sort of like out in the parking lot so people know what, I mean, I'm assuming there might not be a line for primary runoff in June, but just making sure that people know which way to go once they get there.
Generally speaking, it's, in most locations, it'll be one entrance that
Okay.
they then diverge into their 2 different rooms. But whenever there is 2 different parking areas, we'll certainly have signs out for that as well.
And my only comment on that is just, I feel like a lot of voters don't necessarily know, like, Sewell Mill 01, but they know where they voted.
Mhm.
So making sure that the signs say, like, if you voted at this church, you vote in this room, right? So that people know, as opposed to just having it say Sewell Mill 01, or, whatever. Does that make sense?
Normally, we don't do it that way, but we can look at that.
Yeah, I just found that was helpful. I worked at a co-located poll once, and
Mhm.
nobody knew, like, Roswell 01 or Sewell Mill 02, but they know where they vote.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
if the signage was able to actually say, like, if you vote here, come to this room. You can put the precincts on there, but I just don't think people always identify with that, but they know where they voted.
Okay, that's good information.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything further on that one? Okay.
All right, tab 3E, again, is a temporary polling location for precinct Lost Mountain 03, which is the Boots Ward Rec Center. Again, the same issue with the children's programs at the rec centers. And we're proposing moving this one to the West Cobb Senior Services Center, which is actually on the same property, so it's very close.
Very close.
And we have done it this way before in other summer issues like this. So the West Cobb Senior Center is located, it should say 0.3. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Boy, I'm just not able to see this today. 0.3 miles from Boots Ward Rec Center, but really it's, you go in the same entrance and you, yeah, it's right there. Okay. All right, so the next one is tab 3F. And this is a temporary change of the polling location for Murdoch 01 from the Atlanta Chinese Christian Church Northwest to Murdoch Elementary School. We were at Murdoch Elementary School when we then changed to this Christian church, but the church is not available. They have some event that they are holding at that same time. So we're temporarily moving back to the elementary school, and it has worked before. It is within the precinct boundaries.
Okay.
Any other questions? Oops. Okay, so the next one is Powder Springs 2A. This is another rec center, and so we're moving Powder Springs 2A from the Ron Anderson Rec Center to Compton Elementary School. Now, we have not used Compton Elementary School before, but they are somewhat close, so they've given us permission to go ahead and use that facility. They're 1.1 miles from the Ron Anderson Rec Center, and they do have space available for this polling location.
Okay.
Okay, so that is the end of the temporary location changes. No, it's not. Okay, 3H is the last of those. So 3H is for Roswell 02, moving from Mount Zion United Methodist Church, again across the street, to Episcopal Church of St. Peter and St. Paul. And this is a conflict with their schedule for Vacation Bible School. So they've asked us to find another location for that. The Episcopal Church is the current polling location for Dodgen 01, so it will be a co-located situation. We have done that before with these two churches anyway, and it has been able to accommodate us.
Okay.
And this is the last one. Okay, and so this is the only one that we're proposing as a permanent change. It was another situation where we needed to make a temporary change because this is for the Fair Oaks 04, and it's now located at LaBelle Elementary School, which is having some summer renovation, which the schools often do their renovations during the summer. And in looking for a temporary location, we found a suitable permanent location that's willing to have us move there. And again, in our effort to move out of schools, this seemed like a good permanent change. So we are proposing that we move this to Templo de la Trinidad, which is a church. And they are located 2.3 miles from LaBelle Elementary School, But it's really only 0.3 miles outside the boundary of the Fair Oaks 04 precinct. So if you look at the map, you can see that it's very close to the edge of the precinct boundary. And we would make this change effective on June 21st because that is the day that they're not available. They are available for the May 24th election, just not for summer renovation time.
Did we have any conversation with them about making the change effective May 24th? There may be some confusion. I mean, obviously, again, there are a number of changes, so confusion is
Right.
going to abound.
Right.
It's just what it is. But did we have
Well,
that conversation?
We have had that conversation in staff, and
Okay.
we're so far into our planning for May 24th that it becomes a problem for all of the planning that we're doing, and we're
Mhm.
already talking to the polling locations and making arrangements, and the delivery schedules are all being made and all of that. So, you know, I recognize that people are going to be confused when the change happens, but it seemed to be better for, you know, the planning purposes to get it right and do it for the one that they're not available, starting with June 21st.
So the facilities are really good for a permanent.
Yes, yeah. The temple is Templo de la Trinidad. They're good for a permanent change, but we made the contract starting June 21st.
Okay. Did we talk to them about potentially, I guess I understand that we've started the planning process. But we've started it, have we finalized it? I just think all of this is ripe for confusion, but to the extent that you vote at location A for the primary, and less than a month later, you vote at location B for an associated runoff, and if we could potentially avoid that, I think that would be helpful. But
Right.
you know what you and your staff
Right.
need from a planning purposes.
So one of the things we were going to do for this one, I think there was one other one that met this kind of criteria, is we were going to hand out little flyers to the voters that vote in the May primary, that, you know, notifying them that if they want to vote in the runoff, they would go to a different location.
Okay.
You can only do so much.
No, I understand we can only do so much. I guess, I'm sorry, but I still haven't heard as to whether we pose the idea. Like, what exactly is the impediment to making
I would have to check,
the
my staff
change
is
effective as
texting me.
of May 24th?
it looks like they are available on May 24th.
Okay. And I understand they're available, but obviously you and your staff have to manage through the planning
Right.
process. Obviously, you're not going to start planning, you very well may be planning now. So I just want to understand from an internal perspective, what would be the impediment
Right.
to making the change effective May 24th?
Well, we can do either, whichever, you know, the board thinks is the best decision for the voters. Like I said, we've already got our delivery schedule, and we do those by routes.
Okay.
Obviously, this is fairly close, so it could probably work into the same route, depending on whether they can receive the equipment on the same day. If there's a scheduling change, that might make a difference. But we can do either. We'll work with it, whichever one you want to do.
Does anyone else have any comment or questions?
Just want to say, I agree, if we could do it on the 24th, I would absolutely support that. I think from a voter's perspective, that's the start of their election cycle, and I think it would make the most sense if we're able to accommodate that. That would be my thought.
Okay?
Okay.
There's one general comment. Have we had this number of temporary conflicts in the past?
Yes, we have. This is pretty normal for summertime. I think we did a really good job of getting these all ahead of time. You know, normally we would be presenting them to you almost right before the election that is effective. With the short time frame between the May primary and the June runoff, because it's now 28 days, it used to be 9 weeks. You know, we started working on these earlier. And so they're all presented to you in a consolidated agenda, which is different. We might have given you some a little bit at a time until that June runoff. But, we're kind of pressed for time because of the short time frame between primary and runoff now.
Okay.
Are we going to be able to do a mailing to the voters to notify them?
We will certainly try. We're still mailing out precinct cards from redistricting.
Right.
And so they will get their location for the May primary, which, I know we can do that for this permanent change, but all the rest of these are just effective in June. So they'll get their precinct card for their May primary. They'll say their regular polling location is whatever it is. And then we'll have to get word to them that for a temporary measure. And that, again, is one of the things we're going to do is try and give them a notice at the poll, May 24th. But that doesn't hit everybody. But
Right.
Sure.
generally, in the runoff, it's usually some of the same people who voted in the primary.
I guess from a communication or a notice standpoint, I would presume you and your staff are looking at kind of all of the potential means of letting them know, leveraging some of the commissioners' newsletters and what have
all the
you.
time.
Because it is a significant, it's not within anyone's control, but it is a relatively significant, large number of, proposed temporary locations to, changes to locations that they voted at less than 4 weeks prior.
It's a good opportunity to remind everybody that they really should check the My Voter page before they go to the polls on any election day.
Okay. I think that takes us through all of the proposed changes, both temporary and permanent. At this point, we'll open it up for public hearing. I don't know as to whether anyone here with us has any comment.
We do have one person.
We do have one person
That's virtual that signed up.
that signed up for public comment. I think it's totally appropriate to give them an opportunity to go ahead and speak. Who is that, please?
Sally Grubbs.
Okay.
Ms. Grubbs, you
Hey
can unmute.
there, this is Sally.
Hi, Ms. Grubbs. This is Tori Silas. We can hear you. Go ahead. Obviously, note that you have you're limited to 5 minutes, but please go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I would like to commend Janine and her staff on the excellent and hard work that they did on House District 45. I think they did a great job. The reason why it was important for me to sign up for public comment today is that I'm concerned about having, with the early voting and all of that going on with the hours from 7A to 7P, and there's already a shortage of poll workers as there is. Everybody is hurting for employment right now. Having, both Saturdays and then the optional Sunday, I think it would be better if we could limit some amount of time. What's been said out there is that part of the Democrat strategy is to have so much early voting to wear people out so that they won't be available to poll watch. And I would like to think that that's not true. But I think with the turnout and that kind of thing, we can see that there's not the long lines, there is not voter suppression happening or anything like that. And I think it's only fair to the poll workers and the staff at the Cobb Board of Elections to make common sense limited times instead, because when you're talking about voting from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., that's a very, very long day for everyone involved. And there needs to be some compassion and understanding for what's going on in trying to hire workers and also getting poll watchers. And I think I would highly encourage you to please think about being more fair with limiting some of that time, since you're getting basically 6 days a week of voting. The hours should be limited.
Thank you for
And
your
that's it.
Thank you for your comment. Just to be certain, let's go, I think we can, I mean, it's a bit disjointed, obviously, because, Ms. Grubbs was unable to join us at the outset of the meeting. But comment noted with regard to kind of the public comment section that we took up at the beginning of the meeting. Coming back to the public hearing and the proposed temporary and permanent, the one permanent change that we'd like to take up a vote for. Just again, want to confirm that there's no one present with us that would like to make comment with regard to that. Okay. I would propose, oh, go ahead, I apologize. I looked down, no one was moving, so go right ahead.
Yeah, Jackie Bedadapur, Chair of the Cobb County Democratic Party. Again, we're looking at a lot of precinct changes, and as I said at the last meeting, I really understand the complexity of the precinct operation, and I know Janine and her staff do an excellent job of juggling all that. But it really drives home the need for early voting. There's going to be voter confusion. We've seen voter confusion in House District 45, special election. Janine just stated that people need to check my voter page before they head out to vote. They did that in the special election, and they had misleading information on my voter page due to updates of the new redistricting information. So despite all our efforts to get the information out there, these precinct changes can be very disruptive to voters. And we have new laws in place that prohibit offering provisional ballots to people who show up to vote at the wrong precinct until after 5 p.m. And then they have to sign an affidavit swearing that they can't get to the correct precinct location in time. So I wanted to emphasize that I understand all the precinct changes and the need for them. It is disruptive to voters, and the one best solution to this is to offer expansive early vote opportunities where people don't have to report to a particular precinct. They can choose a location that's most convenient to them to vote. And, we need to make it easier for people to vote. This is not some grand strategy on behalf of the Democratic Party to overburden election staff. We are most interested in just making it easy for people to vote and expanding access. And I know a lot of burden is being placed on election staff by people who are still constantly questioning the 2020 election results and count. We are still going back and questioning Janine on ballot scans and squaring that with voter counts. And that is indeed a burden on election staff to have to continually answer those questions and rehash the 2020 election results. So I would prefer that that we sort of close the book on that. We've had 3 recounts, multiple questions answered, and that we allow election staff to focus on this next election and expanding access and offering free and fair access to the polls for this election. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We'll go ahead and take up a vote on the proposed election changes. I'd like, unless anyone has an objection, to take them up in the manner in which they were presented. The classifications, 3A, in as much that it's related to the May 3rd.
Can we do them all together?
We can. It just seemed to
Unless
potentially.
Unless someone has a problem.
I don't believe so. We've all had an opportunity to comment and ask questions, so.
So I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, floor is yours, Pat. What motion do you make?
I'd like a motion to vote on the whole package.
Oh, you need you'll
I'm
turn your
sorry.
mic on.
Like to make a motion to go ahead and vote on the whole package of all the,
Okay.
because we've heard information on all of them, and I don't think there was any bad comments about any of them.
Okay, and they're absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Again, not.
We don't
within
have
our
much
control.
time, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the motion is to approve all all proposed changes 3A, as noted in the agenda from 3A to 3I. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the proposed polling location changes as noted in the agenda 3A through 3I. Please vote as to whether you are in favor or not. Yes.
Can we amend that for one piece? Are we allowed?
That's why I wanted to take them up. Like what amendment?
Just on the May 24th piece for the permanent change, to make it effective May 24th, are we allowed to add that in?
Is there perhaps a new motion? I don't know the right way to do that, sorry. I think perhaps it's a matter of, if, that's why I wanted to vote on them individually.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's all good. Why don't we vote for those that are temporary and those that are
Right.
permanent?
I agree.
Okay,
My
so restate your
is
motion.
For all the temporary. For all the temporary ones.
Okay, so the motion is to approve 3A through 3H, all of which are temporary polling location changes. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve all of the temporary polling locations as denoted on the agenda. The motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion with regard to 3I? The proposed polling location change.
I move that we accept the proposed location change with the revision that June 21st be changed to May 24th.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the proposed polling location change effective May 24th as opposed to June 21. If you'll vote. Okay. The motion passes unanimously. Next up, the special election report.
Okay, so this is the special election held on April 5th, and I've passed out to you our usual election, report from election night, which gives some information about, which precincts came in early, which came in later, when early voting was uploaded, when the mail was uploaded. And really, all of that took place between 7:28 and 9:35. And we were out the door by 10 o'clock. So it was a good election. It came out to a 14.5% turnout. And there were 11 provisional ballots cast, and 9 of which were counted. And down below at the end there, it talks about the absentee mail and advance in-person voting. And we had a total of 2,463 cast in those categories. So there was really nothing too eventful that day. We did have one scanner that it failed, and so we did have to replace it at one of the polling places. The memory cards were removed and inserted into the replacement scanner that had been tested and what we call a spare. And so we brought a spare out there and moved the memory cards in, and the voting went on as planned. The poll workers had been asking voters to put their ballots into the emergency bin, which is part of their backup procedures, so voting had been continuing. And then as soon as the replacement scanner was there, the poll workers set up like a process with the poll watcher there to, validate everything, where they scanned those ballots that had been placed in the emergency bin the rest of that day. So that was really the only thing that happened that was eventful that night. You also have the election summary report, which are the actual results from the election management system. And again, there was a 14.5 turnout altogether. So with that, I would ask that you certify this election.
Is there a motion to? Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to certify this April 5th special, HD 45 special election, if you'll vote as to whether you approve. The vote is unanimous to certify the election.
Madam Chair, before we move on to the other parts of the agenda, I would like to just mention we are, fast and furious planning for the May 3rd runoff. And as we were emailing earlier today, we are trying to solidify our early voting schedule. And given the input from the Fulton County as well, because this is a shared, HD 45 is shared between Fulton and Cobb, we would like to continue with the 7 a.m. through 7 p.m. at East Cobb Government Center. We do have the majority of voters in Cobb, in that region. But would like to propose either my suggestion that the main office be limited to 8 to 5, or even Ms. Mossbacher's suggestion that we close the main office and just have the East Cobb Government Center open. We did have in the April 5th early voting, which was 3 weeks. This will be much shorter, but we did have only 46 people that came to the main office during the 3 weeks. Because it is, the precinct or the polling area is, that East Cobb area.
Okay.
So if the board would give me direction in that, I would appreciate it.
Do we have any idea what the cost was for those 46 people?
We have had a practice for many years not to value a vote with a dollar amount, so.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the same question about the whole election.
Very true. Is there any further comment or questions around the proposal? And just to restate, the proposal would be to limit early voting in the runoff for HD 45 special election to the East Cobb Government Center, which is squarely in the area, the polling area where the voters are located, correct?
Majority.
The majority.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. The other, before we get to that motion, I know that we are in collaboration to a certain extent with Fulton County. The 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. as you've proposed it, I'm assuming that aligns with Fulton County, or I just want to understand not the collaboration, but the communication as you described it.
Yes. So the Fulton County interim director said that they are conducting their early voting starting April 23rd, which is the Saturday. And that aligns with the date that we were intending to start. And then beyond that Saturday, Monday through Friday, the 25th through the 29th. They're actually going to be open only 9 to 5. But we don't really want to squeeze it down quite so much because, we did have quite a few voters, especially in that last week that came in. So we were okay with the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. during that 6-day period. It wouldn't be aligned with Fulton in the hours. It would be aligned with Fulton in the days.
And the days. Okay. Excellent. Thank you for the additional information.
How does the proportion of voters in Cobb compare to the proportion in Fulton?
I think they have about 5,000 or 6,000. I know there are 2 precincts, and then we have 12 precincts and 39,000 and a half.
So the majority of the voters that are eligible to vote in the election are located in Cobb
Yes.
County? Okay.
Correct.
So I'd like to be clear once again, we're proposing thank you. So I'd like to be clear once again, I had it on, and I don't know when I turned it off. Are we proposing not having early voting at Whitlock? I know that was part of our discussion. That was part of a question last time about whether Whitlock was required and an interpretation of whether it was required.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We had always been under the impression that the main office is required to be open. And then in the HD 45 original election in April, Fulton, again, was not open at their main office, only at their satellite. And so we did ask the state to give us some guidance on that. And their attorney said that there was no requirement to have the main office open, which was news to us, so.
Since the majority of it is over in East Cobb as well as Fulton, it's, to me, a no-brainer.
No,
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
I just wondered about that moving forward, if that is
Yeah.
if that's the policy, regardless of whether it's East Cobb or not. Okay, thank you.
And so with respect to Whitlock, understood that we are, it sounds as if we're not proposing to have early voting there, but we would still obviously accept the drop-off.
The Dropbox does have to be in our lobby, in
In-
our
right.
main office, and we would always accept absentee
Absentee,
ballots
okay.
dropped off, yes.
Okay.
It would just be in-person voting that would be only at the East Cobb Government Center.
Okay. At East Cobb Government Center.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Any further comments or questions?
I'll make the motion, we'll see it.
Okay. So the motion is,
To have this closed, but the East Cobb Government Center open.
right, for purposes of the minutes, it would be that Whitlock, the main location, would not be an early voting location. All early voting would take place in person, pardon me. Early voting would take place at East Cobb Government Center on the Saturday prior to the election.
Two
No,
Sat-
two
two
Saturdays prior
Saturdays.
to the election. The Monday through Friday prior of the week prior to the election, and the hours would be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Is that, did I restate that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we had the May 3rd runoff in there. Because when we're making these motions for the record, we just want to put the date in there.
Okay.
His motion didn't include the date, and so I'm
Well,
just making sure we
and
had.
Janine, I think we had also said Saturday we were gonna keep the same at 9 to 5. The weekdays were gonna be 7 to 7.
Your mic,
Oh.
but yes.
Sorry.
Yes, what we're proposing is
It won't
April
stand.
23rd, 9 to 5, which is Saturday, regular Saturday hours, 9 to 5.
Okay,
And then Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
just wanna make sure we're all
Yes.
clear. I don't know why
Yep.
this won't come on.
I'm
There.
sorry, I didn't bring a handout, that would have been easier, but
Oh, we've got it. So, having restated the motion, and we all are clear as to what it is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to approve, as stated, the early voting timeframes for the May 3rd special election runoff. If you'll please vote. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Board member comment? Want to open it up? Go ahead.
We're hearing a lot of discussion of the early voting locations, number of locations, number of hours. Does Secretary of State or someone have a summary of those for the metro counties so we could compare ourselves to the other counties?
that can be obtained from my voter page, or, I mean, I can pull all that information for
I
you.
think maybe at the next meeting, if we had that as just a summary, a one-page summary, something simple would be helpful to understand where our hours and our number of voting locations, and obviously that has to be compared to the number of voters in that county. How does our county compare to others?
I think that's a valid point. I mean, do we want to, understand for particular counties, and maybe to the extent it's a request of Janine and her staff, maybe provide guidance as to which counties we're talking about? I mean, there are some obvious selections, that being perhaps Fulton, Gwinnett, but
Yeah, how
I
do
think
we
we should be
stack up?
prescriptive
Right.
if we're making the request of Janine and her staff as to what counties we'd like to kind of have a comparable.
So if we can cut down, then,
Yeah, I would assume Fulton, DeKalb,
Yeah.
Gwinnett, Douglas County,
Douglas.
the,
Yeah, right.
the Beltline counties as well as,
no, it'd be good. And mean, it is.
I mean,
there
Clayton is,
available for
Clayton is
us.
technically a Beltline
That's
county,
right.
and
Sure,
so
sure.
that's why I
Oh,
just
yeah.
want to be clear as to what the ask of the staff is. So Fulton, Gwinnett, DeKalb, Douglas, Clayton, others?
Are the ones that we compare to.
I think that's it.
As far as size, of course, Douglas and
Douglas
Clayton
is-
do not compare to us.
Right. Okay.
It's up to you.
That's why I wanted to clarify
Yeah.
what we were asking Janine to do, her staff to do, so.
Okay.
Okay. I think you pull the information for Douglas and Clayton and note the distinction in the size of the registered voters in those counties versus, well, obviously what we have in Cobb, recognizing that we're more aligned from a size perspective with Gwinnett, Fulton, and DeKalb.
Sure.
Okay. Any further comment from board members? Hearing none, I will note that our next two scheduled board meetings, one noted on May the 3rd, obviously that's to observe the special election runoff returns. That will be located at Whitlock, correct? Or no?
I'm sorry, yes,
Okay.
it'll all be at Whitlock, just like the April 5th one.
Okay, just want to get it on the record and make
Yes.
certain that anyone's listening knows where that's located. And obviously, on May the 9th, we will be back here to certify those results and take up other business. Anything further with regard to the agenda items thus far? Daniel, is there a need to go into executive session?
Yes, I think we need the executive session for pending and potential litigation.
Okay. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So should we make the motion to?
Yeah, you want to
Yes.
we need a motion that says the reason in the motion. So,
Okay, make the motion to go into the special session.
to executive session for the purpose of pending litigation.
For purposes of pending litigation.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So, for those of you in attendance, when we are in executive session, we do have to clear the room. Pardon?
We need to vote on it.
Oh, I apologize. Go ahead.
All in favor?
Go ahead. I didn't see it flashing, so. It's unanimous to go into executive session.